Stu Ungar, the man who mastered the game and beat world-class poker players and even won the world championship. Let's see how it all happened and how Stu became a multi-millionaire by playing poker. How it all began. The quote, "The apple doesn't fall far from the tree," is mostly true in the case of Stuart Errol Ungar, famously known as Stu Ungar. He was born on the 8th of September 1953 to Jewish parents Ido and Faye Ungar. Stu was born in Manhattan into a family of gamblers. His father owned a bar that doubled as a gambling spot, so Stu was exposed to the game at a very young age. His father had tried to keep his son away from the dice, but Stu fell in love with the lifestyle and craved the rush of taking risks and winning big. So he started playing in the most clandestine places without his father's knowledge. Stu was brilliant and even skipped the 7th grade, but money became a problem, so he had to drop out in the 10th grade. The next few events that occurred fueled Ungar's decision to go into gambling full-time. In 1967, he lost his father to a heart attack, and to make matters worse, his mother became incapacitated by a stroke. He needed a way out of his financial problems and decided to do what he did best, only on a larger scale. Stu wandered from one New York gambling scene to the other at a young age, learning the ropes and honing his skills in the game while waiting patiently for the opportunity to hit it big. He had survived on bare minimums and worked various menial jobs to feed and clothe himself, and at the age of 18, he met and befriended an unexpected person, someone who greatly influenced his personality and turned him from a regular gambler into the ruthless savage of a gambler he became, willing to do it all to succeed. That's when he met Victor Romano, a well-known figure in a criminal organization. Romano was respected as one of the best card players around at the time, and his intellect in predicting odds was quite impressive. Ungar took a liking to Romano's personality and lifestyle, and the two became fast friends. Romano became more of a mentor and protector, teaching Ungar everything that he knew, helping him to develop a larger-than-life personality. Some called it confidence, while others called it arrogance, but it was clear that Ungar had become a lot more outspoken, careless with his words, and very competitive. He couldn't stand the sight of people losing, let alone taking a loss. During games, he would loudly make jest of his opponent's play, being disrespectful in any way that he could. This was also a mental strategy to take his opponents off their game and get them to panic and make rash decisions. His relationship with Romano protected him from other dangerous gamblers who had a problem with his careless and disrespectful behavior. His opponents knew that he was talented, but didn't think highly of him or even saw him as more than just a competitive player. Ungar had wanted to become a well-rounded player who could switch from one game to another and still dominate his opponents, so he decided to diversify. Nothing prepared his competitors for what came next. From gin to poker. Things were not always rosy for the talented gambler. He did lose a lot of games and even borrowed money to play. Owing a lot of money at the racetracks, he could no longer remain in New York City as the consequences might be dire. He then left New York and moved to Miami, Florida to begin a new life, but was unable to make any money there. That's when he decided to pool all of his resources together and moved to Las Vegas, as most great players had been based there. He was optimistic that he could make a lot of money, and when he got to Vegas, he bumped into an ex-girlfriend by the name of Madeline Wheeler. The two of them spent a lot of time together, and the lovebirds then tied the knot in 1982. Ungar had a problem, though. He had mastered gin so much that the market had dried up. Nobody wanted to play against him because of his reputation and excellence in the game. He had obliterated anyone who challenged him to gin, both professionals and average players. It became so bad that Ungar played Harry Stein, who was referred to as the best gin player of the era, and defeated him by a shameful 86-0 in a high-stakes game. Ungar's victory over Stein was more of a curse than a blessing, though, because everyone knew and respected Stein, and many had looked up to him because of it. Nobody dared to even challenge Ungar after that. At some point, Ungar became so desperate that he began to offer handicap matches that would give his opponents significant advantages over him, just to even out the playing field. He allowed them to look at the last card on the deck and sometimes offered rebates to losers and other gestures that would put him at a solid disadvantage. When Ungar first arrived in Las Vegas in 1977, gin was one of the most popular games, with various tournaments being held frequently. He came into the scene and began to participate actively in these tournaments. Some of them he would win, while some he finished as one of the top ranks. And over time, his name began to appear back-to-back on the champion sheet, and it caused quite a bit of a stir. Several casinos had to stop him from competing in their gin tournaments because other players felt discouraged by his presence and wouldn't enter to compete if they knew that he would be there. He became like a bad omen, but for gin players, it was a major problem for him because if he wasn't allowed to participate, how was he going to win? It was like taking his livelihood away. Just imagine being fired from your job for being too good at it. But if he was being honest, a huge part of the problem was his own. He wasn't just handing down physical defeats, it was also psychological. He had found a way to get into the minds of players and slowly take them apart as they began to break down, knowing that a huge loss was imminent. The look of desperation would overwhelm them as they mourned their losses, even before they had happened, and he made it clear that you were in his world, and any route that you took would lead back to defeat. Another notable professional gambler who fell victim to a much younger Ungar would be Billy Baxter. Ungar was still relatively new in Las Vegas when he met Baxter at a casino, and he offered to challenge him, and from Baxter's recollection, Ungar was so small that a Coca-Cola crate had to be placed on top of his chair just so he could reach the table. Baxter couldn't believe that this was his competitor for the night, and it seemed almost too easy. But like everyone else who came before and then after, Baxter would be handed one of the worst defeats of his career. That night, he lost $40,000 to the small player, and Ungar made the switch to poker as he was less known in this side of the game, and most players would comfortably enter the tournaments as they knew he didn't have a reputation. Ungar had complete faith in his own abilities and believed it was only a matter of time before he became feared in poker. However, things happened just a little bit differently. 3 years of Ungar. Ungar had made a poor impression in his first tournament, which was the Super Bowl of Poker main event in 1980. Understandably, it was his first world tournament, and he was still adjusting to the way that the games work. He finished 34th out of 41 players, and that same year he entered the World Series of Poker, hungry for high-stakes action at the Texas Hold'em tournament. Ungar defeated Doyle Brunson to win that tournament, and became the youngest champion in the history of the game at that time. He was so small that people referred to him as the Kid. He had gained the respect of many, while others thought that he had simply been lucky and couldn't wait to challenge him the following year. Ungar defended his title the following year, where this time he defeated Perry Green to take home the victory for a second time. 1981 was a great year as he entered the deuce to 7 draw event, winning the 1978 World Championship, defeating Bobby Baldwin to win $95,000. Ungar often ran into trouble whenever things began to go his way. In 1982, he was unable to successfully defend his title for the World Series of Poker because he was physically and mentally exhausted. He was earlier caught cheating at a blackjack game at the Atlantic City Casino, and he denied the allegations, refusing to pay the $500 fine. He took the matter to court, and after $50,000 in legal and logistics expenses, he won the case, but was well tired and distracted at the tournament, so he lost his title. Misfortunes. Ungar had started using drugs since he had lost his mother in 1979, and according to his biography, he claimed that other professional players did it as well, as it had helped them to stay energized for longer periods of time. His recreational use soon became an addiction. Misfortunes would follow as he divorced his wife Madeline in 1982, and in 1989, he lost his adopted son Richie to suicide. During the 1990 World Series, Ungar was found unconscious in his hotel room from a drug overdose. It was only the third day of the competition, but he had accumulated such an impressive chip lead that without being present to play the rest of the game, he still made it to 9th place, taking home $25,050. An unexpected comeback. In 1997, Ungar had struggled with physical damages from years of drug abuse. He was also neck-deep in debt and was in no shape to compete, but yet something happened that would change his life. His old friend Billy Baxter brought him into the 1997 World Series of Poker to compete. It was a late registration, and Ungar's spot was secured only moments before the registration had closed. While it seemed like good news, it did not change how Ungar felt physically. He was exhausted on the first day of competition and even dozed off at the table several times. He was in really bad shape, but was able to make it through the day. The next day, he returned a completely different person. Much to everyone's surprise, he was well rested and ready to go. He had amassed a large number of chips, making his way to the finals, and at the main event, he took out all of his competitors, becoming a 3-time champion. In an interview, he would show the picture of his daughter to the camera, dedicating his motivation and success to her. Ungar had bagged a $1 million first prize, which he shared with his friend Baxter, and his comeback after so many years would be epic, and the media would label him as the comeback kid. What did you think about the life and poker career of Stu Ungar? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. Also, make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you never miss another great video like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.